In a laboratory in California, a woman named Emily just woke up. But she wasn't asleep. She was dead. Clinically dead. No heartbeat, no brain activity. For 6 minutes, she was gone. Then scientists brought her back. This isn't science fiction. It's happening right now. And it's just the beginning. Because across the world, researchers are working on something that sounds impossible. Defeating death itself. Extending human lifespan not by years, but by centuries. Maybe forever. The question isn't whether we can do it anymore. The question is, should we? For all of human history, death has been inevitable. Emperors, philosophers, billionaires, everyone dies. But what if death isn't a law of nature? What if it's just a medical problem we haven't solved yet? Some scientists believe aging is a disease, and diseases can be cured. In the last 2 decades, we've extended the lifespan of worms by 10 times. We've made mice live 40% longer. We've identified genes that, when modified, dramatically slow aging. And now we're testing these interventions in humans. Not to add a few years, but to fundamentally change what it means to grow old, to keep you biologically 25 even when you're chronologically 100. This isn't fantasy. The science is real. The question is how far we can push it, and what happens when we do. Let's start with the basics. Why do we age? For most of history, people thought aging was just wear and tear, like a machine breaking down over time. But that's not quite right, because aging isn't random. It's programmed. Your cells have built-in mechanisms that limit how long they can divide and function. The most famous is the telomere. At the end of every chromosome in your DNA, there's a protective cap called a telomere. Think of it like the plastic tip on a shoelace. Every time a cell divides, the telomere gets a little shorter. After about 50 divisions, called the Hayflick limit, the telomere is too short, and the cell stops dividing. It enters a state called senescence, where it's alive but not functioning properly. These senescent cells accumulate in your body, releasing inflammatory chemicals that damage surrounding tissue. They're called zombie cells, and they're one of the main drivers of aging. But here's the interesting part. Some cells don't have this problem. Cancer cells, for example, produce an enzyme called telomerase that rebuilds telomeres, allowing them to divide indefinitely. That's why cancer is so dangerous. It's essentially immortal cell division. But it also suggests a possibility. What if we could activate telomerase in normal cells without triggering cancer? In 2009, scientists won the Nobel Prize for discovering telomerase, and since then, researchers have been working on therapies to extend telomeres safely. In lab animals, it works. Mice treated with telomerase gene therapy lived longer, healthier lives. Their organs functioned better. Their fur stayed thick. They even maintained cognitive function into old age. Human trials are underway. A company called BioViva even tested it on their own CEO, Liz Parrish, who claims her biological age decreased after telomerase therapy. The scientific community is skeptical. One person isn't a study, but the potential is undeniable. Then there are Senolytics, drugs that selectively kill zombie cells. Remember those senescent cells that stop dividing but keep releasing damaging chemicals? Senolytics target and destroy them. In mice, senolytic drugs reversed age-related diseases. Kidney function improved. Cardiovascular health improved. Even osteoporosis reversed. In 2021, researchers gave Senolytics to elderly humans in a small trial. The results were promising. Patients showed improved physical function and reduced inflammation. But we're still in early stages. The drugs need refinement. We don't fully understand all the side effects, but the principle is proven. Removing old damaged cells makes the body younger. Another approach targets cellular metabolism. There's a protein called mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin, that regulates cell growth and metabolism. When mTOR is highly active, cells grow and divide quickly, but they also age faster. When mTOR is suppressed, cells enter a maintenance mode, repairing damage, recycling waste, staying healthy. This is what happens during fasting or caloric restriction. Studies show that animals on restricted diets live significantly longer. Caloric restriction extends lifespan in yeast, worms, flies, mice, and even primates. The effect is consistent across species. The problem? Most people don't want to eat 30% fewer calories for their entire lives. So scientists developed drugs that mimic the effects of caloric restriction. One is rapamycin, originally used to prevent organ rejection in transplant patients. In mice, rapamycin extends lifespan by up to 15%. Human trials are ongoing. Another drug is metformin, a common diabetes medication. Observational studies suggest diabetics taking metformin live longer than non-diabetics, even when you control for diabetes itself. Researchers are now testing metformin specifically as an anti-aging drug in a trial called TAME, targeting aging with metformin. If it works, it would be the first FDA-approved anti-aging therapy. Then there's NAD+, a molecule critical for energy production and DNA repair. As you age, NAD+ levels decline. By your 50s, you have about half the NAD+ you had in your 20s. This impairs mitochondrial function, the powerhouses of your cells, and accelerates aging. But you can boost NAD+ levels with supplements like NMN or NR. In mice, NAD+ boosters improve endurance, restore muscle function, and even reverse some aspects of aging. Billionaire biohacker Brian Johnson takes massive doses of NAD+ precursors as part of his anti-aging protocol. He claims to have reversed his biological age by several years. Critics say the evidence in humans is still limited, but the research is promising enough that major pharmaceutical companies are investing billions. Now let's talk about something more radical: cryonics. The idea is simple. If you can't cure death yet, preserve the body until technology advances enough to revive it. When you die, your body is cooled to -196 degrees Celsius using liquid nitrogen. At that temperature, biological processes stop. Cells don't decay. You're not alive, but you're not decomposing either. You're in stasis. Companies like Alcor and the Cryonics Institute have over 500 people preserved this way, including famous futurists and scientists. The hope is that in 50, 100, or 200 years, medicine will advance enough to repair whatever killed you, reverse the damage from the freezing process, and wake you up. Is this science or wishful thinking? Honestly, it's both. The technology to revive a frozen human doesn't exist yet. Ice crystals form during freezing, damaging cells. The brain's delicate neural connections might be destroyed. But cryonics advocates argue, what's the alternative? Cremation? Burial? Those are guaranteed permanent death. Cryonics offers a chance. Maybe a small chance, but non-zero. And there's evidence that extreme preservation works in simpler organisms. Tardigrades, microscopic animals, can survive being frozen, dried out, and even exposed to the vacuum of space. When conditions improve, they reanimate. No damage. Certain frogs freeze solid in winter, their hearts stop, and they thaw out in spring, perfectly fine. If nature can do it, maybe we can engineer it for humans. In 2016, researchers successfully cryopreserved and revived a rabbit brain with neural connections intact. It's not the same as reviving a whole human, but it's progress. The real breakthrough might come from vitrification, a process that turns tissues into a glass-like state without ice crystal formation. It's already used to preserve embryos and organs for transplant. If we can vitrify a whole human body without damage, revival becomes much more plausible. But what if we don't preserve the body? What if we preserve the mind? This is digital immortality, uploading consciousness to a computer. The idea is that if you can map every neuron in a brain, every synapse, every connection, you could simulate that brain in software. The simulation would have your memories, your personality, your sense of self. It would be you, just running on silicon instead of neurons. Is this possible? In theory, yes. The human brain has about 86 billion neurons and trillions of synapses. That's a lot of data, but not infinite. Current estimates suggest you'd need about 2.5 petabytes to store a complete human connectome. We're already building computers with that capacity. The hard part is mapping the brain. Projects like the Human Connectome Project are working on it. We've successfully mapped the connectome of a tiny worm, called C. elegans, which has only 300 neurons. We've partially mapped fruit fly brains. Mapping a human brain is orders of magnitude harder, but it's not impossible. Here's the philosophical question. If we upload your brain, is that really you? Or is it just a copy? If the original you dies and a digital version wakes up with all your memories, is that continuity of consciousness? Or is it a new being that only thinks it's you? Some philosophers argue for the upload and destroy method. You upload your mind and immediately destroy the biological brain. No copies, no confusion, just one continuous stream of consciousness transitioning from meat to machine. Others say it doesn't matter. If the digital version has all your memories and behaves exactly like you, then functionally it is you. Personal identity is just pattern and information. The substrate doesn't matter. But try telling that to someone facing the upload process. Would you press the button? Would you trust that the you that wakes up on the other side is still you? Let's talk about something even more ambitious. Biological immortality through regeneration. Some animals don't age. Lobsters, for example, produce telomeres throughout their lives. They don't experience senescence. They just keep growing until something kills them. Disease, predators, or fishermen. A lobster could theoretically live forever. Then there's the immortal jellyfish, Teratopsis dohrnii. When it's injured or stressed, it can revert to its juvenile polyp stage and start its life cycle over. It's the only known animal that can completely reverse aging. If we could understand the genetic mechanisms behind this and apply them to humans, we might achieve biological immortality. Scientists are studying these organisms intensely. They've identified genes involved in regeneration and cellular reprogramming. Some of these genes exist in humans, but are turned off. What if we could turn them back on? In 2006, Shinya Yamanaka discovered that you can reprogram adult cells back into a stem cell-like state using just 4 genes, now called Yamanaka factors. This won him the Nobel Prize. Stem cells can become any type of cell. They're essentially biological reset buttons. Researchers have used Yamanaka factors to reverse aging in mice. Old mice treated with partial reprogramming showed improved vision, muscle function, and lifespan. The key word is partial. Full reprogramming turns cells into stem cells, which can cause tumors. But partial reprogramming resets the aging clock without losing cell identity. Human trials are being planned. If it works, you could periodically reset your biological age, not just slow aging, reverse it. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Should we do this? If we can extend human lifespan to 200, 500, or even indefinitely, should we? There are massive ethical, social, and economic implications. Overpopulation is the obvious concern. If people stop dying, where will we put everyone? Earth's resources are already strained. But proponents argue that birth rates decline as societies develop. If people live longer, they might have fewer children. Or we expand beyond Earth, colonize Mars, build space habitats. Longer lifespans might be necessary for interstellar travel. You can't reach another star system in a human lifetime with current technology. But if humans live for centuries, suddenly those journeys become feasible. Then there's inequality. Anti-aging therapies will be expensive at first. Only the wealthy will afford them. Does that create a society where the rich live forever and the poor die? History suggests new medical technologies eventually become accessible. Insulin was expensive when it was first discovered. Now it's widespread. The same could happen with life extension. But the transition period could be brutal. Imagine a world where billionaires live for centuries, accumulating wealth and power, while ordinary people age and die. That's dystopian. On the other hand, some argue that life extension would be the greatest humanitarian achievement in history. Aging causes immense suffering. Alzheimer's, heart disease, cancer, frailty. These are diseases of aging. If we cure aging, we cure them all. Billions of people would live healthier, longer, more fulfilling lives. The economic argument is compelling too. Healthy people are productive. They contribute to society. Aging populations strain healthcare systems. If we keep people biologically young, healthcare costs drop. Productivity increases. Innovation accelerates. There's also the psychological question. Would immortality be boring? Would life lose meaning without death? Some philosophers argue that mortality gives life urgency. If you had infinite time, would you ever do anything? Or would you procrastinate forever? But others counter that people with terminal illnesses don't feel more alive. They feel robbed. Most people, given the choice, would want more time. More time to learn, to create, to explore, to love. Death isn't what makes life meaningful. Life is what makes life meaningful. And more life means more meaning. Religious objections exist too. Many faiths teach that death is natural, ordained, part of a divine plan. Interfering with that could be seen as hubris, playing God. But others argue that medicine has always been about defying nature. We cure diseases. We repair injuries. We prevent deaths that would have been inevitable centuries ago. Life extension is just the next step, and many religious traditions value life as sacred. Preserving life, then, is a moral good. The debate will continue, but the science won't wait for consensus. So where are we now? In 2025, we don't have immortality, but we have the tools: telomerase therapy, Senolytics, mTOR inhibitors, NAD+ boosters, partial reprogramming, cryonics, digital uploading. Each approach targets a different aspect of aging, and together they might work synergistically. The first person to live to 150 might already be alive. The first person to live to 200 might be born in the next decade. And the first functionally immortal human? That might take longer. But it's coming. Scientists like Aubrey de Grey predict we'll achieve longevity escape velocity within our lifetimes, the point where life expectancy increases by more than 1 year per year. Once we hit that, aging becomes optional. Here's the thing. Death has been humanity's constant companion. Every story, every religion, every philosophy has grappled with mortality. It's shaped everything we are. Art, culture, meaning, all of it exists under the shadow of death. But that shadow is lifting, slowly, incrementally, but undeniably. And when it's gone, will be something new. Not quite human in the old sense, post-human, immortal, for better or worse. The greatest adventure in human history is about to begin, and for the first time ever, you might actually live to see how it ends, or rather, how it never ends. So the next time you look in the mirror and see a gray hair, a wrinkle, a sign of aging, remember, that might not be inevitable. It might just be temporary. Because we're not accepting death anymore. We're fighting it. With science, with technology, with sheer stubborn human refusal to go gentle into that good night. Death has had a good run, billions of years, but its days are numbered. Welcome to the age of life extension, the age of regeneration, the age where death becomes optional. Welcome to the future, and you might just live forever.